everyone. Welcome
Hello.
to and Reset with Marie and Gina, your favorite show. Partner, how are you today?
I'm exhausted. We've, as
We
I don't know
love
if
you.
people know, but we are doing a lot of testing here at Formé, and I'm weathered right now.
Yeah.
But good.
Um, Everybody, if you look at this face, this is not the normal face. I actually was telling Henry Ramos, who does the production of our show, who we want to thank from the bottom of our hearts, the hard work that he's been doing. His company, you get to see it at the end of the show, Deadline AV. And I was saying to Henry, please do not give me a close up because I look really bad.
Uh,
We before this, we actually suit up with, and some of you have already seen this on social media. So to fix the hair and your makeup, after that, it's not an easy task. This is the best you get, right, GC?
you look beautiful, Mama. I don't care. And you know what? Let me tell you something. We're bringing good information. I don't think people are going to critique what we're looking like today. We're definitely in the front lines
I
right
hear.
now. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, but we're very happy. We are going to repeat again that we are doing the testing for the COVID-19 virus. And in addition to, we are doing the testing for the antibody for the COVID-19 virus. So the insurance is covering this, and the self-pay patients, we have a minimal fee, as low as we can get it. So we're very happy that the community has this service, and we are amazing. We have many patients that are coming.
That's right. That's right. And we're finding that a lot of people are very interested in the antibodies because the antibodies tells you if you've been exposed and if you've actually built the immune, or I don't really want to say you're immune because God knows what's going to happen with this virus, but at least you have the antibodies against the COVID-19. And also we're having an overwhelming response with the antibody tests. As well as, I
Yeah.
mean, even during the day, we have people, because we're a walk-through center for the COVID-19, people are actually walking up and registering right there to try to, to get their test done, which we're allowing because, they have no place to go.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very sad.
Actually, next show, what I was thinking, GC, that we do is really concentrate on explaining to people how the system is working because there's so many questions. That's what I find as I am managing patients outside, you're managing patients inside. And there is so much confusion that I think for our next show, we will be answering questions. We should just be out there and answer questions so that people can understand what the choices are that they have and how it works. So we're going to go over the numbers because obviously, one thing that we notice from the numbers is that this is, we have a long journey here. This is not going to change anytime soon. We have over 2.2 million, almost 3.2 million people that have the virus, and over 226,000 deaths, and recover only again 992,000, which is a low number. So there's still a lot of people infected. And let's go to the United States. Over 1 million people, and now 61,000 deaths. Wow. I mean, that number just keeps growing every day. And I look at CNN and every night before I go to sleep so that I can get an idea. And by the time I wake up, I get to see more and more death. It's terrible. And only 144,000 people recovered. This is
Yeah.
scary, everyone. This is scary. And in New York, I mean, over 27,000 people have lost their lives. Over 800. I mean, it's just over 800,000 people that are infected. Really, really sad. But in talking about, how devastating this is, GC, let's introduce our guest.
Yep. So we are lucky to have Edite Shiro on the call with us here on Facebook Live. She's a psychologist, and we're going to talk about a little bit about how people are dealing with loss, not just the loss of a job or your business, but family members are passing away. And just real quick, one of our doctors, our cardiologist, was here today. And what she was telling us is that more reported deaths are happening in the home, not just with the undocumented. People are so afraid to come out of their houses because they're afraid they're going to catch the virus, that they're actually dying at home from heart attacks and different things that are happening from the virus. And they're dying at home. So tell us, talk to us. First of all, give us a little bit about you, people that don't know who you are.
Yeah, no, I'm so grateful that, for this invitation and to share with you guys again and be in this program. And I'm such a fan of Forme Medical Centers, of things that you've been doing, especially now that you're front doing the testing. And I'm just listening to you guys talking about the antibodies and how you're measuring that and people just coming in and registering. It's really, really such a good service for the community to be doing that. And partly because so much misinformation and uncertainty that at least this is something that is concrete, specific, it's practical, it gives something to hold to.
So can I
You
stop
know,
you for a second? Let me just try to not move so much because you're breaking up a little bit. We can't really hear you. So just try to
oh,
stay
okay,
almost,
okay.
yeah, so we can hear you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Can you hear me
Okay.
better now? Thank you, Gina. Technical. This is what happens when we do,
Uh-huh.
homemade technical
Yeah.
We all
interviews.
learning.
But
Yeah.
can you hear me better now?
Yeah. Just stay in one
Is it better?
spot. Mhm.
Okay. One of the things that that have I've been talking. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I have my private practice here in Miami, Florida. I lived in New York most of my life. I specialize in trauma, post-traumatic stress. I work with refugees, with immigrants, with survivors of different kinds and different types of trauma, as well as work a lot with families. I do parenting, family therapy, couples therapy. So I've been doing this kind of work for a long time. And, at this time during the virus and in this pandemic, it's been coming up a lot, the topic of grief and the topic of mourning and how do we deal with trauma. And we're really living, like I say, in a collective trauma, because it's not just one incident with one individual. Is we're all going through this in different ways. I mean, everybody experiences trauma in a different way. That's one of the things about trauma, that it's a very subjective experience. We cannot decide what the other person is going through. So one of the things that that we have to emphasize in this moment is that whatever tools or coping mechanisms that we use to deal with fear, with uncertainty, with trauma, with crisis, depends on each of us. Like each of us have our own experience, our own tools, our own ways of coping with it. I'm not saying it's individual. What I'm saying is like we have our own style. So we cannot decide like whomever is doing, one thing is better or worse than what I'm doing or what the other person is doing. And for some people, this is pretty traumatic experience. For that other people, it's the best thing that ever happened. I've had some people say, I'm doing good. I mean, I've always been an introverted. I've always wanted time to be by myself at home doing nothing. And this is really good for me. And I have people that are falling apart and they're really, really going through a lot of things that right now, and might not have the coping mechanisms, or might not be resilient enough to deal with this. So seeing the whole spectrum.
So how do you, what is the best advice for people? Because I know everybody is, like you said, losing. They're struggling. Even when you're doing fine, you're either struggling financially because you don't have a job, but at the same time, like you're seeing so much death. And I personally, I got to tell you, like this week has been hard for me. I was being interviewed by a reporter, and out of the blue, like I just broke down. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't control my emotions because that day I had just talked to a woman that lost her husband a month ago and to COVID. And she couldn't get tested in Queens, and she's actually coming to us because she heard, she saw in social media, and she reached out to me, and I ended up speaking with that lady for about over 2 hours. In this is the night before she came to get tested, but the devastation on her and the children of this family that just lost their father, like out of the blue,
Mm-hmm.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Like, what do they do?
Yeah. So this is not just a loss. I mean, we're gonna talk about death itself, but this is not just a loss of a physical person. This is a loss of so many things in so many levels. We're losing not just our routines, our future plans, our relationships, or not to do in the future. We're losing economic, in some ways, financial. We're losing emotionally resources that maybe we could have before. So there's so many losses that are not just the tangible losses, but the intangible. This is the things that we had in place. The plans to go away on vacation. We can see a loved one that is far away and travel. Uh, you know we lose touch maybe with people that, I have couples that began to start getting together and now they can't. I have people that have had lost a member of the family, not because of a virus, but because they were old, or there was something else going on with them, and they cannot be there for them in their process of mourning. So there's so many losses at so many different levels. That's why it doesn't just touch the people that have the virus, or just the people that have a loved one that died from the virus, but we all go through loss. So I'm not surprised, Maria, that you were crying, because this is a moment where, when we're in crisis and with trauma, it accelerates the process. It like inputs in intensity, it raises the volume in everything that we're living. So if we're getting in touch with our loss, what happens is that we connect with every loss we've had in our lives. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe right now I'm feeling frustrated because, I want to go, I want to see patients in person that I can, and I can only see with telemedicine. But that loss for me connects me with, let's say, um, when I was an immigrant and I had to move from Venezuela to the United States. And that loss connects me with my divorce. And that loss connects me when I was a little kid and my grandfather died, and that loss. So all these losses become like a chain effect. So the reactions that we have seem extremely disproportionate for the moment of what we're living. So you're in the middle of an interview crying and you don't know why, or because of you're seeing a patient, or because you hear something in the news, or some people tell me they're watching a movie and they start crying and crying and crying. Yes, it's extremely disproportionate for the present moment, but it's because we're connecting our loss now to every loss that we've had in our lives, or every trauma or every crisis that we've had, of unresolved issues that are coming up and that are showing up now. So this is a very difficult moment, and a moment of like staying in touch with feelings, with really like allowing ourselves to just open up and sit with the crying, with the sadness, with the fear, with the uncertainty, and really recognize that, instead of denying it or pretending it's not there, or saying, no, me, I have to be good for everybody else, or I have to show that I'm doing well. It's really a moment to be a little more compassionate, and just look at those feelings and sit with those feelings and accept them at this moment.
I think the fear is really, really, it's amazing how many people are afraid, which, I want to say, in the truth, it's a good thing. It's a good thing for them to be afraid, so they don't take this as something very light. And I know there are some people that are, but I think the saddest part is being, when you have a family member, or a loved one or a friend who's in the hospital, and you can't be by their side, and should something happen to them, there's no way of you saying goodbye to them. there has to be, it's almost like there's no closure, to not be able to be next to somebody, you know.
Yeah, Gina, and you're touching something that is so important, which is this concept of ambiguous loss. And what does that mean? It's the moment in which we are losing a person, but not really like we're going through the whole process of loss, or we don't complete the cycle. As we know, and I think Mariana, you and I were talking before about the stages of grief, the stages of loss, which is, you first uh, um, get in denial of like somebody's dying or somebody died or somebody, this event happened, I'm in denial, the virus happened, I'm in denial. The second stage, as we all know, is you get extremely angry, like enraged. There's the process like bargaining, negotiating. Sometimes you negotiate with God, you negotiate with the person next to you. Sometimes you make, concessions to say, what if I only, pray every day for 5 minutes or 5 hours, then the thing changed, or some sort of negotiation. Then there comes the real depression. Depression is the moment of absolute sadness and say, wow, I just lost my dear one, my
A bad connection.
partner, my what?
The connection, it's
Uh,
yeah, the connection is coming in and out. I'm not
you
sure
think it's
why,
me?
but
I can't move. Okay, let me see if
yeah,
I move.
I think
But
it is you.
yeah, so what I was that then you go to the stage of denial, the depression, the sadness, and then finally there's some form of acceptance. So when you're in that stage of, okay, yes, this happened to me, I just lost somebody, or I'm losing, this in this situation, then what happens? That's when you get into the process of mourning. And that's when you say, okay, I want to go see the person, I want to be with the person, I want to say goodbye, I want to be next to the person so I can my process, so I can
Right.
complete it. But because we do it right now, we stay in this stage of ambiguity. So it's like, did we lose them or did we not? Did the person die or he did not die? Am I there with them? But because I'm not seeing it, I'm pretending that it's not happening. So it's almost like you have to convince your mind that the actual event happened, even though you're not seeing it and you're not experiencing it, especially if the person died in another country or in another state or far in a distant. So it's like, you can stay in the stage of denial, because it's like, it's not happening, I didn't see it happen. I'm not going through, like, to the cemetery, I didn't go through the shiva, or I didn't do the prayers, I didn't go to the church, nobody's coming to me to say, I'm sorry in person. So it's almost like you're not having the elements that our culture has given us to understand and to accept that there's a death. So we stay in that limbo, and that's really the worst place to stay. Out of
Mm.
all stages, the worst stage is staying in that limbo, because you're suspended in time and place, and you don't have action. And when there's no action, it's very, very hard to then heal in some form. You stay like frozen in time and in place. And this is something to really keep in mind, especially you guys that are working with people every day that are seeing that, to be very careful not to let people, as much as you can, to stay frozen in that space of limbo, suspended. Because that's where the illnesses come, that's where the pathologies come, that's where the trauma really stays, that's where we develop post-traumatic stress, when there's no movement and there's no action and there's no like taking steps to do something. And I don't know if you've seen that or if you observed that around you, but this is something to keep in mind.
Yeah. So, and they need to get help. That's the other concern that I have, that I see, like, I'll give you the example, that lady, that woman that is actually becoming a friend of mine, because, I just I love people, and it's like, for me, I see somebody in pain, and I want to help. So I'm trying to help her out, and I connect to her. She's, somebody that definitely needs help, and but for people like her, like with the pain that she's going through, like what should she just, it's a month, so it's just a month that this happened. Is there any comfort, like things that she could do to get some comfort? Because I always say too, like you shouldn't go the entire day in pain. Like there has to be a little bit of energy put into putting, like I call daily deposits, something positive for the day, no matter how dark you feel. What's your advice on that? Do you agree?
That's, yeah, that's a great question, and yes, I totally agree with that. Um, Usually, I recommend that we take some time in the day to crying and the screaming and the pouring out all those, difficult, painful moments. If you can, like, decide, okay, every day at this in my day, for 2 hours, whatever, I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna self permission to enjoy something. Because sometimes when this happens, the expectation is that the person is going to be sad all day long, all the time, and they cannot laugh, they cannot enjoy, they cannot, do things that makes them feel good. So give yourself a permission to actually have good moments and positive emotions, and enjoy your day at the same time that you're going through hurt and pain and loss and sadness. So that's one thing. The other thing that I really recommend is to take the steps to do the closure of the cycle of mourning. And since we cannot do that in person, we have to be very creative in how to go about that. So one of the things that we can do is that we can write a letter, even if we cannot send it to the person, but write a letter to the person of all the things that you want to say, or write a letter as if you're giving a speech at the church or at the gathering, when, as if you're going through the community, putting the person to lay to rest. Another thing to do is do connect with the loved ones, family, and friends that are associated with the person that died. And do a Zoom call, a party Zoom, or whatever you want to call it, in which you are not isolated in this event, in which you feel that you are with other people going through these very difficult feelings. And there, thanks to technology, we can do that. It's not the same, but it really gives people a sense of connection, and that you're not isolated. I actually had a call last week. One of my best friends from actually Westchester, her father died. Sorry, her mother, she's a dear beautiful woman. And every night for 1 week, she had a gathering of friends and family to talk about her mother and what they remember about her, the memories that they had about her. They did a prayer every night, a singing and a praying. They posted pictures. People were showing pictures on the Zoom of like memories that they had, or things that they found about the mother. It was beautiful. It allowed her to complete sort of like the cycle of like doing the whole process, even from a religious perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a community perspective. So these are things that might seem minor, but they really make a difference in terms of sharing with others, because they're all probably going through very similar feelings, and also because there's a power in the community to be able to go through the rituals. So if we cannot do it in person, we should do the rituals on distance, by distance, and in the computer, or on the telephone, making phone calls, doing everything possible to allow this cycle to close.
Okay.
Yep.
So everybody, I just want to remind everyone that we are talking to Edite Shiro, a psychologist and specializes in trauma. And right now, you're somebody that can help a lot of people. And, I think of the children, and I know that you take care of children as well. Um, I saw a woman that came from Queens today to be tested, the entire family, and she lost her husband. This is a second widow in Queens. One thing that I didn't know is that many women are without husbands. Many of the men have died. So I looked at the faces of these three kids and it broke my heart. I'm like, you can see that they look lost. Sorry, two kids. They looked lost today. My concern is the trauma that they're going through. And now that is, psychology. I don't know how much, if they're being seen by a psychologist. I'm concerned about the future. I'm concerned about suicide and all of that post COVID-19.
Yeah, yeah. I'm concerned about what's going to happen, the trauma that can develop from what we're going through now. I tell you that I learned a lot from going through September 11th in Manhattan in 2001. It's I kind of have this similar feeling. I don't know if you guys were in New York at that date, but I actually was one of the people that was running in the streets to, not to get caught by the smoke and by the whole all the things. And that same night, the Red Cross actually hired me to start working with the survivors. And I had the privilege and the honor to work with families of immigrants that their men were working in the towers. So these were all women and children. That's why I'm reminded, because of your comment, Maria, that these were women and children that lost the father, because they were all workers at they were usually Latino workers at the towers, and they all were so devastated by what happened. So one of the things that we learned from that experience is that having immediate intervention, which is what I was doing and all of my colleagues were doing, is like, okay, let's put them in therapy right away, every day, the next week and for months, does not work so well. Like immediate crisis intervention doesn't work. Why? Because the person has not even processed
Right.
the experience. There has been that. So what are you intervening? There's no intervention in that moment. That's why I'm saying sitting with the feeling and accepting what you're going through and talking about it and sharing it with family, with friends, even with a therapist. I mean, I'm here. I'm here to talk about it, and like me, many others, just to be able to say, yes, I'm devastated, I'm at the loss, I'm so sad. For children to be able to talk about their fear and their sadness, and for the mothers to say, you're allowed to be sad, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be afraid, it's okay to feel lost, because that's a proper response, and we should not shy away from that. So we have to give permission to do that. One of the things that the children and the mothers of 9/11 did, which was really beautiful, was that they were wearing the picture of the father in their clothing. So they made either shirts or keychains, or like they were having his face and his presence very much with them and very tangible, especially for the children. It was nice to see, like, okay, this, I'm so proud of my father, was a worker and he did this, and that they were allowed to talk about him and to share with the community what they were, what who they were and what they were doing. So these are things that you can suggest to this family that you see, and maybe in the near future we can talk about how we honor the people that have died, and how the families can have prominence in being recognized in the community as survivors and as people that have endured a lot of loss, and how we can all support them, and that they're not alone in this. And that's really, really important, since it's a collective trauma. I always say that, like, having collective healing is very important, and the collective healing can only happen through interpersonal relations and through connecting with each other. It cannot be done in isolation.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of good information for people that are suffering, I have to tell you, because you think about it, and a lot of these people are still walking around in shock. You're right. Who's ready to talk about it when they still haven't processed that's what happened? And it's a lot of really great information. I mean, and I think there should be. I don't know if there is actually a if there's a hotline for
Mm-hmm.
these people who are suffering to call or to be able to reach out to someone like yourself, because it gets to the point where even for the mothers, who are now alone with their children trying to figure out how they're going to survive, the weight of the world is sitting on these on everybody. And I know we're in it together. And the truth is when something happens to you, you don't feel like you're in it together. You don't feel like everybody feels what you're feeling. Nobody can understand your pain, like you said before. And as much as, everybody's going through it and we're all in this together, wow, not when something happens to somebody you love, you feel like you're the only one suffering. So I get it, but is there a hotline of some sort for someone to,
There
to,
are
to,
there are therapists, that are available online, and I don't know specifically for the coronavirus if that. I mean, there are support groups and there are lines for that, but specifically for ones that have somebody dying or died, I'm not sure. But one of the things that I really want to do is to create online support groups for survivors like that, which I think would be a great idea. I'm sure there are some sort of support groups around. I'll find out and give you more specific information. There are hotlines for suicide. There's hotlines for domestic
right,
violence. There's hotlines for that are still going on and they're pretty very much functional. And they're also, in place. They're always been therapist available for crisis, so that happens. But I don't know specifically for the ones that are going through death right now. And that's a great idea, and I think we should start a support group. And
okay,
for
well, we'll
this
add something else to our plate. Right, Maria?
I agree.
No,
I definitely think that one of the, we have a nonprofit organization that's called Promise to Aid, and we are trying to get funding. So everybody out there, you can go into our website is partner. What's the website?
oh, it's
Is
promisetoaid.org. And yeah, if you
don't
guys
we
could go in
believe it?
and make a donation for people that really need either food or medical care or
There we are.
yeah, the medications, even testing. People can't even afford to be tested because they don't have insurance, and then the labs cost money. It's not easy. So yeah, if you guys could go online and check out our website, and any little bit helps.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I definitely, we have been talking about, Gina and I, that we want to create support group, and there is going to be a need for a support group in Spanish and English for the post COVID-19. I mean, during, because we don't know how long this is going to last. Unfortunately, it definitely seems like it's going to be longer than what we expected. So, um, Edith, I want to thank you for always supporting us. This is the third time that you're in
Yeah,
one of
Eric,
our
I was
shows.
at the last
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
your knowledge is amazing, and the way you explain things, it really makes a lot of sense. And that's why we're doing this. We figure Gina and I are exhausted. I mean, we haven't stopped. We're getting here a lot earlier, and we're like, we don't look ourselves, but we don't care because, like Gina said before, we're like, we don't care how we look because it's about giving the right information and providing, helping the community. And that's what you're doing with us today. We want to thank you.
No, I want to
Yes.
thank you guys. First of all, you look amazing, both of you. I don't know what you're talking about. And
Oh,
yes,
no,
I
we appreciate
I saw
much better.
exactly.
Much better.
I admire so much what you're doing, and I hope everybody donates to Promise to Aid, and I hope everybody to Forme and does the testing and everything that is needed. And yes, I think amazing things can come out of this. And as Maria knows, I am always thinking about all the positive outcomes that can come out of a crisis and out of trauma. And I'm the first one to believe that out of the worst crisis come the best possible outcomes and transformations. And I love to talk about that, and I believe in that, and I have gone through that, and Maria has gone through that, and Gina, I'm sure I don't know your story exactly, but I'm sure you have gone through something like that
I
too.
don't know. Yeah, how many months do you have? Or years?
Exactly. But yes, I think
So,
if we as providers can keep in mind that growth, transformation, positive outcomes can come out of this, and we can use this as an opportunity really to see how we can get stronger as a community, we can get stronger as a society, we can get stronger as human beings. We not only stronger, but really we can be more mindful and more conscious. I think this is worth it. It's worth it. The pain is worth it, and all the things that we're doing is worth it. So I'm all for that.
yeah, united we can do so much. And I want to say an example. The perfect example is Henry Ramos, who is behind the scene here. Gina and I were not going to be able to continue doing the shows. It was going to be difficult to bring any guests, and because we couldn't physically bring the guests, and this is the setup we had. And he went out of the goodness of his heart and he reached out to us. He said, "I want your show to continue." And isn't that
Oh,
beautiful? And he's donating his time to make sure that we continue bringing the information to our community. So shout out to
Henry.
Henry. Thank you
Henry,
so
thank
much.
you, Henry. Thank you.
So
Oh, there
that's
he is.
Henry.
Hi, Henry.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank all of you for actually taking the time to watch our show. It is for you. So we're very blessed and grateful that you are watching. And I want to make sure that if you love the show as much as we think you do, please like it, comment, send us your questions. We're here for you. Thank, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Edite.
Thank you so much. Keep the good work.